So after you've filled in your form, collected your evidence and possibly been to a face-to-face assessment, the assessor will put together a report that they'll send to the DWP, and a decision maker there will make a decision about which components and at what rates your relative is awarded of personal independence payment. They will make their decision based on how your disability affects you form, the report from the assessor and any additional evidence. You'll receive a decision letter which will state what components, whether daily living and/or mobility, you've been awarded, at what rates and for how many years the award is. If you haven't been awarded PIP or you've had a reduction moving from DLA to PIP, you'll also get a phone call from the decision maker to help you understand how the decision was made. So they should explain that in detail. Your relative could get an award for up to 2 years, and they say that's where changes in needs could be expected in that period. They may get a longer term award for maybe between 5 or 10 years, and the DWP say this is where significant changes are less likely, but there'll be reviews in the interim where some change in needs may be expected. And then your relative might get what's called an ongoing award. And this is where needs are stable and changes are unlikely. There'll be occasional reviews to ensure that the level of support is still appropriate. So if you're moving from DLA to PIP, your payments will start 4 weeks after the date of the decision. In the meantime, you'll continue to get DLA. There won't be any gap between receiving DLA and starting PIP. If you're happy with your award, consider getting a benefits check done, as you might now be entitled to additional amounts in the benefits you already receive, or you might even be entitled to benefits that you haven't received in the past. Ask for a copy of the assessment to use as a reference point, even if you're happy with it. It's really important to keep all documentation you possibly can to reference. If the award is for a fixed number of years, you should be sent another claim form before it runs out. If the award is ongoing, you'll still receive review forms to complete every few years. If you're unhappy with your award, you can apply for it to be looked at again, which is known as a mandatory reconsideration. This has to be applied for within 1 month of the date of the decision letter. The DWP doesn't have a time limit to carry out the mandatory reconsideration. So I would suggest that if you haven't heard anything after 4 to 6 weeks, that you call the DWP and ask them where in the process your mandatory reconsideration is and when they expect to give you a decision. After the mandatory reconsideration, you'll receive 2 copies of a mandatory reconsideration notice telling you what the new decision is. If you're still not happy with that decision, you can then make an appeal to the tribunal service, and you have to do that within 1 month of the date of the mandatory reconsideration notice. Now, I would say, just going back quickly to the mandatory reconsideration, if you are thinking about going for a mandatory reconsideration, it's a good idea to talk to a welfare benefits expert about this, because there is a possibility that your award could be further reduced, as well as increased or stay the same through a consideration. So it'd be good to talk to somebody who has experience of it, so they can give you an idea of how successful they think you might be. The Motability scheme have just announced support for people who are no longer eligible for the scheme after a PIP assessment, so where they have a reduced award in their mobility component. So they've said that Motability customers will be able to retain their vehicle for nearly 2 months after the DWP decision is made. You'll then need to return the car to the dealership in good condition and within the agreed time frame in order to qualify for transitional support. So they're offering transitional support for people who entered into their first lease agreement with the Motability scheme before January 2013. And they're offering transitional support of £2,000. The intention of this is to pay for another used car. They're also offering £1,000 to people who entered into their first Motability lease agreement after January 2013 and up to December 2013. These levels are going to be reviewed in 2015 to take account of economic conditions and any possible changes to PIP by the government at that time.